Hey everybody, I'm Eric Oberembt, and you're listening to Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. We talk about real shit, what's on our minds, and don't give a fuck if it makes you feel a little uncomfortable. So sit back, strap in, and get ready for some real shit. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I'm your host, Eric Oberembt, back here at D2D-Con 6, day 2, bitches. Today's going to be exciting. We are going to, I think I say that word too much, by the way. I'm going to fucking change that word. I'm not going to say exciting as much. I say it way too often. But today's going to be cool. We have like 9 interviews scheduled today. And I think this one's going to be the most fun because we're going to be able to hear each other because it's early in the morning and people aren't screaming yet. But I got to bring on my friend, Mike Szczesniak. Is that correct? I fucking nailed it. I nailed it. And so before we started the podcast, you mentioned something. You said that your issues with anxiety and some other stuff has kind of led you into this world, right? And so I know people listening, they kind of get used to hearing people's stories, right, about struggle and what got them, to where they are today. So I'd love to hear more about like that, about what kind of shit you went through, to be able to come out.
My first job was selling skis and snowboards from 8th grade, literally through the beginning of my software career because it was unpaid, right? So I got into engineering because they're like, they make a lot of money. And I'm like, awesome. So I did that and I had a really good climb, right? Like every year was big pay raise, big promotion. Like on the outside, it was great. All the vanity shit that we think we want. Yep. Luxury apartment, fountains outside, fountains inside, 24-hour doorman, like fancy. Upper East Side. Yeah, it didn't belong fancy. There. We had a connection, like, but I had all that stuff. And as we so often hear in these stories, like it's beautiful on the outside, on the inside, not so much. Right. So I was really, really quickly figuring out what anxiety and debilitating panic attacks were.
Oh, really?
And this was like, my first panic attack was January 1st, 2014. And I mean, that kind of speaks to the mental component of it, right?
Yeah.
But
so let me ask you a question real quick.
Totally.
Sorry, I'm a fucking horrible interrupter when I'm
You're good.
interviewing. Because I had a time in my life where I had panic attacks as well. It was a short period of time, but I remember when it first happened to me, I ended up going to the doctor because I thought I was having a heart attack, and like they hooked me up to like EKGs and shit, and they're like, nah, you're fine. And I'm like, dude, I'm not fine. There's something fucking wrong. I thought I was dying.
100%.
Similar experience?
Dude, I was head deep in a toilet. Like literally thought I couldn't breathe.
Yes.
I picked up the phone. I called my mom because I was 23 years old. My roommate was out of town. I'm sitting on the 17th floor of this apartment building by myself trying to watch freaking Captain Phillips. And I was super stoked about it because I hadn't seen it. Yeah. Right? But it's the same exact thing. It feels like 1,000 pounds on your chest.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
Dude, back then, like Instagram was still big, but it wasn't what it is now. Like no one was talking about mental health back then. I didn't know what anxiety was. And I did the same exact thing, not immediately, but like I picked up the phone, I called my mom, I pressed mute because I didn't want her to hear me puking in the toilet. Right. Because I knew my tonality was already scaring her enough. And that started this 1.5 year long journey of going to the doctors, getting my chest x-ray, doing breathing tests, like all these things, because I thought there was a physiological issue just like yourself. Yes. And I'm super grateful that they never found out what the hell was going on, and I was the one that assigned those labels, so to speak. Because they would have pushed me down the pharmaceutical route. No disrespect, that just wasn't my path. Yeah. Right. And later on in my life, when it showed up in different ways and it was manifesting in different forms. Like what? Like there was a year, I can't remember if it was 2016, maybe 2017, where I was legitimately lightheaded. No, it was 2018 because it was the year I ultimately left corporate. Okay. I was legitimately lightheaded for the first 6 months of the year. What? Yeah. Like I was cloudy, like? I was spacey. It was horrible because my business hadn't grown. I was facing this crossroads where I was either waving the white flag, going back to corporate with my tail between my legs because I could have gone and gotten a 6-figure engineering degree, or taking an ego hit, moving back in and turning 30, living in my parents' basement. And it was a lot more than just the anxiety, right? Like my windows were facing the sunrise in Jersey City where I was living at the time. So like my sleep was dog shit.
Right.
So there was a lot of other factors that played.
External factors.
There was so much financial stress, right?
Yeah.
So it was manifesting in a different way.
Yeah.
And they tried to push me down the pharmaceutical route that time, but.
So is that what did you figure out? Is that what a lot of it stemmed from, was financial insecurities?
That second time, yes.
Second time, yes.
The first time, so what I realized was, because obviously being an engineering nerd like I am, you got to reverse engineer like what was happening, right?
Right.
And I realized that 100% of the attacks that I felt and that I experienced happened in a moment where I felt guilty for not working.
Oh.
Because I was very much, remember, I was selling 40 to 60 hours of my week to my employer, and then I was doing the whole 5 to 7 a.m., 7 to 11 p.m. side hustle, right?
Oh, okay.
So I dug a little bit deeper. I'm like, okay, well, how do I fix this? Like, that doesn't solve my problem. Right. And what I really came down to was, okay, if I could build a healthier mindset around what it actually takes to get where I want to go in life, and not this like toxic hustle mindset that I fell head first into, which by the way serves you until it doesn't. And I was figuring out when it doesn't.
Yep.
So if I could build a healthier mindset around it, and then number two, if I could be more effective when I was working paired with that healthier mindset, I might not feel like shit when I wasn't.
Right.
So that kind of cracked the door open to this productivity realm that I always joke was like my gateway drug to high performance, because it cracked the door open, right? Like it's now 20, maybe 30% of what we do with our clients, but it's what started it for me. So I started going down the rabbit holes. Year and a half later, I met Brendan Burchard. Wrote my first program on the flight home from that event because I resonated with his energy and the words high performance. Like that was the lens I looked at my life through. You know, college athlete, competitive power lifter. Like I just aggressively attacked everything in my life.
Competitive power lifter?
Yeah.
You're a tall motherfucker to do that, aren't you?
Yeah, it was rough. It was a big ego hit.
You need to
kind
kind of be a...
Yeah, my deadlift was really solid, but everything else, yeah, it was really tough. But dude, when I started, because the way those work, it's the weakest lift that goes first in every flight. So after my first competition, I was the first person in every single one, right? Because it's by weight class. I'm 6'5". I'm going against like 5'6" meatballs that happen to also weigh 215 pounds.
They only got to go 8 inches off the floor.
Yeah. And at that time, I was competing at like 220, 230 maybe.
Okay.
And dude, my only goal was I didn't want to be the first one. I was like, get strong enough that I'm not the first person in every lift.
Right.
But yeah, that was a fun journey, like 3.5 years.
Interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to digress.
No, you're good.
But I'm really interested in, and I think that people listening are very interested because a lot of people that listen are either sales guys, which is being an entrepreneur within somebody else's business, right? Entrepreneur or whatever you want to call it, and people that own businesses. And the anxiety thing we don't talk about because we talk about recovery on here a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I talk about my anxiety that I had prior to getting sober because I tell the story that when I came home from rehab, I couldn't sleep. And I was so used to being given, when I was still using drugs, I would do mountains of Coke and then I would take a bunch of Xanax to be able to get to sleep, right? And I was so used to having that Xanax that when I came home, I didn't know how to get to sleep anymore because my heart would just fucking be racing all night. And I literally laid in bed and like repeated the Serenity Prayer over and over and over again, like counting sheep until I could fall asleep.
Yeah.
Right? And it took me a year before I was able to get rid of that anxiety. And I know that there's a lot of people just in the business space from what you're saying, financial insecurities, or, you know, the other that really want to know, and I know we kind of touched on it, but really want to know, like, what do we do when we're faced with that? Who do we go talk to be able to get through that a little bit? Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, what did you do specifically?
Yeah. So for me, I always love to try and look back and connect the dots. And unfortunately, like I threw the kitchen sink at most things. Okay. So it was like, it could be any of these many things.
If I try everything, one of them will work.
One of them will work.
Yeah, got it.
But to your point, it's like, I don't know, for me, I always want to be doing something, right? Like the energy has to go somewhere.
Yep.
And I was really grateful that I just clung to personal development in those years. So like the business I was building at the time dove off a cliff, like completely fucked. but I clung to my own growth and my own personal development.
Give up on that. Okay,
yeah, so
I love
like that was what I spent my time doing. I could have been a lot more effective, of course.
Sure.
But I was slowly kind of building these blocks that are now the foundation of a lot of what we do. But it's like, what are going to be your non-negotiables that you're doing every single day?
Yep.
Right? How do you build that momentum? What is that confidence going to look like on the other side? And when that energy is that powerful, how are you showing up differently?
So what are you going to do non-negotiables every single day? To me, that sounds like get some fucking structure. Right?
Amen. Yeah.
Get some structure in your life so that you can be consistent every day with something, and then eventually you'll just look back and see the payoff.
Bingo.
From it, right?
And it doesn't necessarily, this is going to sound really weird, but I genuinely don't believe that it has anything to do with what the actions are that you're building non-negotiables around.
Right.
Of course, we want them to be true needle movers that's going to build the business. Like for me, it was personal development. Yeah, okay, that kind of built me.
Right.
And I built the business down the line, but it wasn't like an immediate ROI.
Yep.
Right? But you want them to be needle movers, but it's really not about that. It's about stacking the wins around anything that matters to you.
Right.
And that's where you have to build from. So that's what I did, right? Little things like, dude, there's all these articles, making your bed is the most important habit if you want to build a 7-figure business.
Right.
Dude, I make my bed every day.
Yeah.
And I check my bank account every day, and it's never deposited $1.
Right.
Right? But it's not about that. Like,
Right.
yeah, sure, there's the concept of like, oh, clean, it's nice to come home to like a clean space and like the mental clarity, but like, dude, it's about stacking W's.
Right.
Right? And you can do that around the things that actually matter, and it's going to move you forward. So
I'm so bad. Like, I just listened to all that, and I haven't made my bed in 30 fucking years, and I haven't checked my bank account in fucking probably 20 years. Like, isn't that weird?
Well, the last part means that you're doing something right?
Or I'm doing something wrong, and I fucking would be able to do something a lot better if I did
Potentially.
that. You know what I mean? Like, I figure that I figure I'm going to be notified by my wife or by somebody else in the company if it's like, hey, you need to check.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I always feel inadequate though because I have that conversation with people a lot. Like, this isn't the first time, and I'm like, I should be doing more, shouldn't I? Like, but I think that's why I love having these conversations with other like high level people.
Yeah.
Because it gives me, like, I selfishly get more out of these interviews than probably fucking anybody because I always
That's why I podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Because then I get to take something away and be like, Eric, you need to fucking do better at that. Like, yeah, you're doing okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're doing fine. People might think that you're doing great.
Yeah.
I know that I've still got miles and miles to fucking go to get to where I want to be, and then I'll still have miles and miles to go. But I love to be able to pull something out of everything that I can be like, Eric, you can do better at that.
100%.
You know, so thank you.
You're welcome
for that. So, all right, hey. So what I always do at the end of every episode is I always give the floor back to the guest if there's anything that I missed that you want to leave the audience with that I maybe didn't bring up or that we glossed over in the course of our conversation that you want to, you know what I mean, make sure you land the plane on.
Dude, honestly, I love that last question. I think that is the most important thing. Like, if people take nothing else away, it is build a set of non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Quantifiable. Like, you have to understand what the volume looks like. Don't let your ego get in play when you're building out that quantity. Right? Because that's what we tend to do, especially in sales. Oh, go knock 1 million doors, go make 1 million calls. Like, what can you do consistently, right? And when in doubt, chunk those down. When in doubt, let your ego get out of the way, drop the volume down to a point where you can hit it consistently, sustainably over the long term. That's what moves the needle in everything. That's what's going to lead to all the momentum, lead to all the self-confidence, all the happiness, the fulfillment. That's what we're really after.
Right.
So
I love that.
Non-negotiables. That's the game.
Love that. Non-negotiables. And where can everybody find you?
At Mike Szczesniak on Instagram. Beware of the crypto scammers. My last name is super Polish. It's very easy to slide extra letters in there.
Yes.
I will never DM you asking for Bitcoin. I will try and sell you high-performance coaching.
Fuck.
You sent him a bunch of money?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's there's like 15 of them right now.
Is there really?
At Mike Szczesniak on Instagram, resultsengine.com.
Resultsengine.com is probably going to be easier than finding Szczesniak since they don't know how to spell it.
Yeah, dude,
right?
it's hard.
Right.
It's hard.
Mike, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me,
appreciate
brother.
you taking the time.
100%.
And remember, everybody, be authentic. Get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic.